Hi everyone, welcome to another Cosmic Crone conversation with me, Marie and Tina. We're going to go retro this episode and we're going to talk about fairies and Irish folklore, which we did back in 2024, around April I think it was, and we met a lovely woman called Mairead at Roots Bar at an Arts and Craft Do. And she was so informative, so charming, so lovely, and taught us quite a few things we didn't know about the Irish folklore and the fairies. So we hope you enjoy this retro edition of A Cosmic Crone Conversation. Hi everyone, welcome to another podcast from A Cosmic Conversation with me, Marie.
And me, Tina.
Well, today, guys, we have a very special guest. Would you like to introduce her?
Hello.
And you are, I'm not going to say your name, you're going to say your name.
Mairead.
Because I've forgotten
It's
already.
Mairead.
Mairead. And you are from Ireland. Which
Yes.
part of Ireland are you from?
I am from the Republic of Ireland.
And is there a county that you're from?
I am originally from Dublin. My family originally comes from Belmullet in the west of Ireland, which is on the North Atlantic coast. Next up is America. And I've lived in Cork for donkey's years because my husband is retired naval.
So I wonder if anybody can gather what we might be talking about today.
Is the little people fairies, and I would say,
Leprechauns.
yes, which I would call elementals, as in, you know, the group of, they're sprites, and they're spiritual creatures that maybe have lived here before we even did.
Possibly, definitely. Well, there is a link. Well, we in Ireland would say there is a link to the other world, and it's through the fairies, and that's why we have fairy doors. So that
Could you
is
elaborate on that?
right. A fairy door is a portal from the fairy world into our world, and that's what we have them. And it's been quite a big resurgence back at home with fairy doors for children, and we kind of use them as a little tool for our little ones to behave themselves and to hand over their suitors, dodies, when the parents want to get them off their dodies.
The dummies.
Oh, dummies.
Yeah, right. So, obviously different names. So when we're trying to encourage our children to give these off, we have the fairy door, we can give them to the fairy door. And when the children outgrow it, because I live in an island called the Great Island, which is in the middle of Cork Harbour. And it's the last port of call for the Titanic. And obviously when the Lusitania was blown up, their bodies washed in, so they're all buried on our island as well.
Oh, bless them.
But we've got a lovely woods, right, called O'Keefe's Woods. And if you go out for a walk there now, all the children call it the fairy woods. So as they're getting that bit older, they bring their fairy doors out there. So now it's become a fairy woods. So that fairy door is a portal to their world and our world. And it all comes into play then at Halloween, because it's All Hallows, so that's where you have Halloween. And Halloween is a very Irish thing. It was jack-o'-lantern, and it was made
the
from
jack-o'-lantern,
turnips. And obviously when Irish people emigrated to America, it became the pumpkin because it's easier to carve. So that's where your Halloween comes from. So that's where you get all of these spiritual and the fairies. Now, Irish fairies are not like English fairies. No. Irish fairies are changelings. And they're quite nasty.
Right.
Yes, so young boys, if you look at old photographs of young boys going way back, they would be dressed in girls' clothes. Because changelings, when they had little boys, they were ill. So they would change them for a healthy boy, their sickly boy. So that's why a lot of boys would have worn dresses.
Oh, so they couldn't be taken.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they were quite nasty. So they're more changelings. So in fields back home, in the topography of fields and that, you see mounds, and they're fairy mounds.
Oh.
Right?
They're very sacred, aren't they?
Yes, they are very, very sacred. So you will notice the whole field could be ploughed, but that bit's not
Except-
touched. You don't
I've seen
disturb
this,
it.
yeah.
And you don't disturb a thorn tree, because that's the fairies' tree. That's where they all gather to have their fights and meetings and all of that. So you never ever touch a white thorn, and you never bring it into the house. It's very bad luck. So you leave them alone. And we do have one very famous story, and it's true, and it can be Googled. When they were building a motorway at home, they were going to disturb a fairy bush. And we have a fairy, he's a great folklorist. He's absolutely brilliant. You need to Google him. His name is Lenihan.
How do you spell that?
Leinihan. And if you just Google motorway in Ireland moved for the fairies, you will find it. And the motorway was actually moved.
Wow.
That
must have cost a fortune.
It certainly did, but the fairies weren't disturbed and that. So you either believe, you kind of, well, I am and I am, or you don't. It all depends on how spiritual
Well,
you
you know,
are.
when you said about the children, how was that? How you were introduced? Was it your environment growing up?
My environment growing up was my grandmother. She's an old Dublin lady, born in what is called the Liberties in Dublin. Very little of it left now. And we would have been brought up with the Banshee and the Headless Horseman.
Oh.
We would have been brought up with all of these stories, and, you know, obviously with the family originating from the west of Ireland as well, and they still live out there. You would have been brought up with the fairies, the fairy bushes, the fairy mounds, and not to be touching things like that, or the fairies. So get a hold of you now if you touch that, and you know, if you're out walking, and you know, because they do have a lovely white flower, and you say, oh, no, that's very bad luck, you don't. So we would have been brought up listening to all of this as children growing up, and to be wary, and especially in the tenters in the Liberties in Dublin. Used to frighten the bejesus out of us. Granny had said, you have to be in bed now before 12 o'clock because the Headless Horseman come down that lane. So we, as kids, kind of, you know, you believed that the Headless Horseman rode down there, or the wailing of the Banshee, not to cross her. You cross the other side of the road because she would throw her comb at you.
Oh.
And if you did happen to come upon her, I don't know why, you turned your coat inside out.
Wow.
I don't know what the relevance of that was.
Something to look up.
But that's what we were told. But each areas have different stories of the Banshees. Mine is, she was a young lady, a young local girl, who fell in love with the Lord of the Manor's son. And he wouldn't allow the son to marry her. So she was left outside the gate, and he was shipped off to England, because you must remember a lot of her land was owned by English gentry. So she stayed outside the gate, crying for him, keening, as we would say, combing her hair. And she just withered away and died. So that's my story that's handed down to me of the Banshees and the fairies and the portals, and this is what happens on Halloween and our All Souls and All Saints. And it's all because, remember, Irish people, we were druids.
Yes.
Before Christianity came in, and Wiccans. I'm sure you've heard of Wiccans. That's quite big at home as well. And there's a lot of resurgence in all of this now. Plus in our language as well. It's all coming back, and it's lovely.
Oh, we
Really
sort of
nice.
resonate with it because we did a podcast on
Halloween,
Eve.
yeah.
Hallows Eve, and we were talking about like the bat and the pagans and all that. So we're very interested in those sort of things. Just to let everybody know, because we are a location podcast today, we are in Roots Bar, and where are we?
Kishuker and Coitatlersu.
Thank you.
It's on the old coast road.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful location here. Very mystical.
It is, isn't it?
It really
Raining.
is. And it's lovely,
beautiful,
soft
though.
Irish day,
Yeah.
as we'd say. And in the summer here, it's beautiful because we are all sitting outside under the palm trees, and there's lovely lights. And it's a beautiful place.
It is
It
lovely.
really, there's nowhere else like it.
You've got some notes, haven't you?
Yeah, what I wanted to ask though was, you've got the stories. Have you actually ever felt the presence or seen any of these fairies or elementals?
No, but I would not interfere with a fairy tree, or I wouldn't interfere with a fairy mound. I would give it a wide berth. That's just me. I'm not tempting fate. Lots of people kind of poo-poo it, but me personally, no. It's like your religion.
It's ingrained, isn't it?
But it's your faith.
Yes.
You know, none of us ever seen Jesus or God.
No.
But I believe he's there. Other people believe other things. So I equate it, it's still the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, I did have experiences in England with elementals and fairies. In our last podcast, I did like my top 10 supernatural experiences, and I was doing a tarot reading, and one day one flew through the reading, and they are mischievous. They're the same.
Yeah, I'd often get at home, especially if I was walking out in the woods out in Carrigallow and places like that, the back of the island, you'd often get this. Ooh.
What touching
that?
Feeling.
It's just feeling that you're being watched, that there's something around, feelings like that. And, you know, I presumed it was the banshee I heard. I'm not going to say it wasn't. But you hear that strange wailing sound and you go, oh, what's that? And granted, that's the banshee. Now,
So
some
you
people
have had
say,
experience,
you kind of, but a lot of people say, that was probably a cat. But it's what you believe in. So I never knock someone saying, well, that was a cat. Well, it could have been a cat. But as far as I was concerned, that was the banshee. She was wailing, and that's a sign of a death.
Do they give you comfort?
There's certain areas like at home that you can walk in. I always had a lovely spot, so obviously I was married to a sailor, my boys are sailors, so it's kind of a lonely life. And sometimes you might be feeling a bit down because they do miss a lot of activities going on at home, and you know, they're missing for family occasions. And if I was feeling a bit down, I'd go out to my own little rock, as I called it, and I'd sit there, and that just area gave me great comfort because I had the sea, I had the woods, and whether the fairies were giving me comfort or whatever it was, I got comfort from that. It just made me feel good.
Isn't that a good thing?
Yeah.
Fantastic thing.
There is one, called the Glastig that preys on ferrymen. So there are like I said before, like there's water sprites.
Don't pay the ferryman.
Yeah, that's where that.
Yes, that's where that comes
Don't
from.
let him fix the price.
No, exactly. Don't pay the ferryman.
So we was also talking about, apart from fairies themselves with wings, leprechauns,
Oh yes, cheeky little monsters.
which I've got down. It means little bodies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Little bodies, and no, I think Hollywood has done them.
They haven't done much good, have they?
Yeah.
I mean, the story Tom Thumb comes from.
Yes, exactly. They are mischievous little creatures, and they can be very bold. And that, you'd kind of equate them, you know, they're very crafty. And so you'll never get the money out of them. You know, things like that. So I'm not a big person into the leprechauns.
Has that ever been used against a human? You know, you're just like a leprechaun. You are. Do you know? It sounds like something you would say.
Well, it can be used in a derogative term.
That's what I meant.
As well, and you know, it was actually said once upon a time to my hubby, and I went, yes. So the person is lucky they've got eyes in their heads. I wasn't very happy about it, you know. So don't be passing. It can be, to me, I took it as derogative. Well, in the tone of the conversation, it came across. But yeah, you leave the old leprechauns to themselves because they can be funny. They can be a bit.
You're tempting fate, aren't you?
You're tempting fate because they're not really nice.
Yeah.
Hollywood has made them out to be very, very nice. They're actually not. Just like Irish fairies are not very nice. They are changelings. They're not all wings and, you know, let's put a bit of sprinkle on you. Fairy dust.
Yeah,
And we do have a fairy tree down here.
Oh,
Do you?
Yes, we do.
I always wondered if there was if fairies existed, because on my land I've got the rescue dogs. I've built a pond, and I've put some fairy ornaments around and plants and stuff, and I want to make it like a fairy garden. But in Cyprus, are they worldwide?
No, that's a thing. I think it's all to do with our traditions and cultures. They probably do have something like it. I'm sure there's spirits here and ghosts. Now in Ireland we call ghosts pukas. That's the Irish term. And yes, I would.
If you build it, they will come.
If you build it, they will come.
But what would they be like with other animals? Because obviously the dogs, I wouldn't think they would come around with that many dogs.
You'd be very surprised.
Really?
Yeah.
If they were similar, they might play the dogs up.
They may. And watch. We all know what dogs are like. They can sit and they can be staring at something. Like babies. They sit and they stare, and we will say, they're looking at the angels.
Yeah.
Whether you believe that or not, that's up to you. And when a baby smiles, oh no, that's wind. No, they're smiling because they see the fairies or they see the angels. So it's what you
they
have.
see your granny or grandpa's come to say hello.
Yeah, it's what's in your heart.
Yeah.
To me, that's what counts.
There's one called Angus Og, and I don't know if it's a fairy leprechaun. He has the ability to slow down or speed up time.
Oh, so a little bit of a time trial. And it'd be Angus Og. Og means young. So he's young Angus.
Young Angus.
Because in their language, a lot of stuff is back to front. So he's young Angus. So his father or grandfather could be Angus as well. But Angus is more Celtic Scottish than an Irish name.
The name is, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes. Well, both our languages are kind of very similar. So, I'd not come across Angus Oaks, but that's not to say, like in various parts of Ireland, they have their own take on the banshee. Like I have my take, which I grew up with, and their takes on things, but we all seem to have the one thing on.
I mean, the Celtic area, like Wales and Scotland and Ireland in general, in the whole of Ireland, there is their own fairies, their own myths and legends.
Yes, there is.
And, and I would say Scotland definitely. And what about, Wales? They have a lot of mystical beings, and I don't know a lot about it myself.
Yeah, I lived in Wales for a while. Yeah, we lived like by the mountains, and it's probably like Ireland. It was very rural.
There's witches within
nature.
Yes, there is, and that's why the fairy mounds and the fairy trees. So, like Ireland as a whole, the whole of the island of Ireland has got 4 provinces, right? So it's Ulster, Munster, Leinster, and Connacht. Now Ulster is the north part of Ireland. Now I am including Northern Ireland because Ireland has North Ireland as well. So you've got Ulster, which is up north. Munster is the south of Ireland. Leinster is the east coast, and Connacht is the west coast. So you've got Munster fairies, Connacht fairies, Ulster and Leinster. So this was where they would meet under the fairy trees to have battles.
I was just about to say that.
Wow.
So they're not all friends with each other.
No.
So they bicker just like we do.
Like tribes, isn't it?
Do. Yes, exactly, tribes. And this is the fairy trees. This is where they would do battle. And the mounds is where they live. So that's...
I mean, it goes really deep within people's beings, because I've watched a few little documentary, or I would say news bulletin things. There was a man, and I'm so sorry, I can't remember where in Ireland it was, but the fairy mounds or the rings.
Yeah.
He got a grave dug, and he was buried in there, alive, for 100 days.
Oh yes, yeah.
To prove that this wasn't true, and he lived. This has got to be in the 50s or 60s, and he did die in 2015.
He actually did, yes.
Right? Do you know this
I
story?
do know
and
that
his mum was
story.
going, "Oh, Rod, I don't know when my boy is."
Because as far as I can remember, it was down in Cove on the island that I live in.
That's weird. That's weird. I said
Because I've
that.
seen the photographs. It's in a pub called Connie Doolan's at
Yeah,
home.
he had a pipe going out.
And he had a pipe coming up and he was buried.
for 100 days, and he
Yeah.
says, "Do you feel okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine."
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I wonder what his life was like after, if he had bad luck, you know.
Oh,
Well,
I
he
don't
didn't
know.
believe because he had no faith.
That's right. He didn't believe. That's why
He
he
just-
went. Did it?
He didn't believe. So that's what I'm saying. We all, whether people are, whatever religion you are, we all have a God and it's the one God. So we have never seen him, but it's your faith.
As I always say, what you think, you manifest, or what you
Exactly.
believe, you manifest.
Yeah, and it's each
Yeah.
to their own. You either believe or you don't believe, and each to their own.
Do you think that the fairies? Well, I can feel a yes coming on. The fairies or the leprechauns have been. You talked about Hollywood, commercialised,
Yes, big time.
and they've lost the true meaning of what they are or who they are.
They have, because we would have, obviously, the island that I'm from, it's a major tourist place, and we get all the big cruise ships come in. And no offence to any American, they do come in and they go, "Oh, I'm looking for a leprechaun," and we're going, "What?" So
Sorry,
what's a
I'm looking at that.
leprechaun?
It's moving on its own.
Yeah.
It's me.
Oh, is
And we kind of go, "You mean a leprechaun?" They call them leprechauns. And we go, "Yeah, no, you mean a leprechaun." And yeah, we're as bad because we've capitalised on it
Yeah, that.
as well,
Yeah, I was going to go there.
which I don't really like. And, you get your shillelagh, which is a stick, and it was used as a weapon.
And the top is very thick.
Yes,
isn't it?
yeah, it's a whitethorn stick.
Yeah.
And we call them shillelaghs. So they'll come in and they buy. They're not into the fairies. It's more the leprechaun because it's more really symbolises Ireland, and the shillelagh, which is a stick, and that was used for fighting with, and the bowron, and that's a musical instrument. So and the Aran sweaters, of course, and the claddering. So they're kind of all into that. So they kind of really haven't taken over the fairies. Really, it's more the poor old leprechaun. That
You can't
they've
blame
taken
people
over.
because it's an industry for the
It is a big
for
industry.
that
Yeah,
town, that village.
exactly, and this is what they come in from. But yeah, it's okay, each to their own. I'm not going to knock it because people will probably say, "God, she's off her head talking about fairies and leprechauns,
Yeah.
believing in that rubbish." But it's each to their own.
Have you continued the thoughts and the feelings to your children?
Oh God, yeah. My grandchildren have fairy doors in their bedrooms.
Oh,
Oh yeah, we've continued that tradition on because I've been very lucky that I've grown up with my great grandparents, and my grandchildren have known their great grandmother.
that's
So
very
and
powerful.
we've grown up with our history, and I've grown up, as you know, I'm sure a lot of people know the history of Ireland. We were under English rule and we fought for independence, and my grandparents fought in 1916 for independence. So I've grown up with all of those stories, and my children, they've grown up knowing their great grandparents, and they've listened to their stories about what's happened in 1916 and stealing the bread and carrying the messages to the old IRA. Please don't get confused, folks.
Yes.
In the
Very
goose's
different.
feathers,
Yeah.
totally different times. And, we've listened to my grandmother, their great grandmother, she's told them about the banshees, and she's talked to them about the fairies, and it's nice to grow up. And I brought that with me here, as well as my own children growing up with, my grandchildren have now grown up with it. And I've told the little children here of Hannah and Ash, who own Roots Bar, I've introduced it to them through their grandmother, and she's now painted a fairy door for them. And it's now on a tree here. So I've brought that tradition, and I've introduced it to other little children.
So they have the access to the other world.
They
and-
have the access to the portal. When
Yeah.
the door is open, that access is there.
That's
So
great.
it's
Because in England, I did a fairy workshop at a Mind Body Spirit festival, and it was really interesting, and we all sort of picked cards, and I was a troll apparently. Everybody else got nice fairies. I was the troll, but it actually makes sense for the life that I live now.
Yes.
It does, like that, you know, I'm an only child as well, and sort of the hermit,
Yes.
which was like a troll thing, but I'm not sure if they were enemies with fairies as well, trolls.
Yeah. Well, growing up now, I've never heard about the trolls. To us, the trolls are more Scandinavian.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that's not so much an Irish thing, the
No,
trolls.
no,
That's
no.
interesting.
Now, in other parts of the country, it could be, but I haven't grown up with trolls in Ireland. It's more a Scandinavian thing to us. But yeah.
So that is different then, like when we was talking about, you know, Cyprus here having it's
Ah,
like
yeah,
different
that actually plays
species
into it.
even, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
in UK, after doing that workshop, I did a few things with fairies and did meditations and stuff, and they were really playing tricks, because one day, this is a funny story, I had an electric shaver, you know, just shave my legs in the sun. I thought, oh, the sun's coming out, but I know I'm going to shave my legs.
I didn't think it was your beard, love.
Yeah, which I've got now, it's getting old. And I went to pick up my shaver and it wouldn't work. I looked inside and the batteries had disappeared. I looked everywhere for them batteries. I blamed the kids, because I thought maybe, you know, my daughter was a teenager then and maybe she'd stolen them. Very strange. Never found them, so I had to keep my trousers on that day. Went out to the dustbins, and there were my batteries sitting on, there was a box that had a tap in it that the porter used to use, you know, to clean around the dustbins outside. There were my 2 Duracell batteries sitting on the top of this thing sticking out the wall by the dustbins, and I know they were my batteries because they used to have the little where it shows you the power, and they had the date on them. You know, the
right.
amount of power, and they were my 2 batteries. Now, how on earth did they get there?
Have you had
You know,
any?
I
any
swear it was
experiences like-
them.
Yeah, you know, you'd kind of go, who made that noise? Or you get a smell.
Oh yes, we spoke about smells.
Get smells, because we used to live on the naval base. Very, very old houses. And obviously under British rule and things like that. And of course there used to be the story of the white lady up in the trees and all of that sort of thing. And yeah, you'd often get this smell, like a lavender smell, and you'd be going, where's that smell? Or I've often got the feeling there was somebody behind me.
Yeah, you said that when you walked through that area.
Yeah, and I often got it in the house as well when we lived on the naval base, and we kind of go, somebody behind me. You know, there's nobody in the house. Children all at school. I like that, this particular smell. And you go, gosh, where's that smell coming from? And that was before all these plugins came in, so there was nothing like that in the house. So yeah, little smells, or a feeling there was somebody there. Or little things like that. So I never knocked these things, you know, or there was nobody there to harm me. It's a good feeling.
Yeah.
It's a good feeling.
Did you feel protected?
Yeah, I felt protected, and I'd walk through a graveyard morning, noon, or night. It wouldn't.
Yeah.
Doesn't. I'm not afraid, and my children and my grandchildren are not afraid of it. Like, you know, they'd walk through the graveyard and they go and they have a
I think
look.
that's a little bit of a learnt behaviour, isn't it? Oh, don't go there.
I used to take my kids.
Well, the dead can't harm you.
Yeah.
You know, and we'd walk through the graveyard, and you know, you kind of look, and they'd say, "Oh, well, Nanny, who's that person there?" That's a, and you know what they died of, and why should they be afraid of the dead? Well, we've got a different attitude in Ireland to the dead. We celebrate a life. You know, that's what
I've
we
always
do.
said that, haven't I?
Yeah.
You know, when people have passed,
Yeah.
to my friends and my family, I've brought my daughter up in the sense of, you know, so and so's passed, or you know, they've gone and all. I go, no, they'll be around you.
Oh,
and
yeah.
when you think about them, think about those times when you laughed, when you cried,
Exactly.
but those wonderful moments that you
Yeah.
had together.
Or if you dream about that person.
Yeah. I
That's
think
them coming
think
to you
it
in a
brings-
dream.
Yeah, I think when you bring that energy to you,
Yes.
you know, you will have those dreams. And recently, I've been having, when I close my eyes, lots of people. Well, I don't know what
Yeah.
that's all about. Oh, you'll have to go into that with me.
Yeah.
But you know, like lots of people come in, smiles, and
Yeah, like I said, we share this universe with not just us.
Oh, no.
Different species that,
Yeah.
that live in different dimensions.
Yeah.
could you imagine
we
a
all have to
life
share.
without fairies?
No. Oh, God, no. Not at all. Not at all. Life would be boring.
And
No,
you know, it's good to leave them gifts as well. They like sweet stuff, don't they?
They
And
certainly do.
crystals.
Yes,
you know,
they
shiny
do.
stuff. 'Cause I've left
Shiny,
them.
yeah, like a magpie.
Yeah.
Shiny things. And, you know, we all have our little traditions. And I say, like the wake, we celebrate a life. So we all gather around the deceased person. We tell stories, we eat, we drink.
You keep them alive.
We keep them alive, you know, and that's your way of celebrating their life. I'm sure you all seen Shane McGowan's funeral where they were dancing in the church.
God, yeah, when
You have to celebrate life. That's what it's all
that was
about.
wonderful, and you could see some people going, "What?" You know what I mean?
Well-
but people just got up and had a real good shindig.
They
You
had
know
a-
what I mean?
We had a good, like, I had an aunt, a quick kind of antidote to this and how we raise, some of us raise our children up and how we've been raised. And my Auntie Sheila, she died at the bottom of the stairs. She had a heart attack and she just died at the bottom of the stairs. So we were all in the mortuary and Auntie Sheila was laid out and my uncle was standing at the head of the coffin. So one of my boys was about 4.5 at the time. So everybody comes over and we all kissed our dead. We touched them, we kissed them on the forehead. So I lifted my boy up to give his Auntie Sheila a kiss goodbye, and he gave her a kiss. And then he stood and he looked up at my uncle. And of course, all the old ears with the rosary beads, the gossips were the far side of the room. And up pipes, your man goes, "Uncle Frank, did you push Auntie Sheila down the stairs?"
Oh no!
So there was this collective across the room, and Uncle Frank just says, "No, son," he said, "I didn't." And your man just pipes up, "Well, that's all right, so," because he couldn't understand why she was dead at the bottom of the stairs. So obviously somebody had to push her down there.
Right.
So there was no fear.
Yes.
And then when my granddaughter...
It's an honesty question.
It's an honesty. And when my granddaughter's great-grandmother died, we were at the funeral and like that, and she's looking, and she peeked in and she goes, "Oh, she doesn't have any wings." Because she's meant to be an angel.
Oh,
So we don't raise them to be afraid
that's lovely.
of the dead. You celebrate their life, and she's gone off.
Would you subscribe to the point of view that some of us do return?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah. I'm fully convinced I saw my granddad a couple of weeks after he died. Fully convinced. He rounded the corner because I stood dead in my tracks, and I think I was about 18, and you know what all us teenagers are like, you know, and I'm positive it was him. Most definitely he walked towards me. I still sometimes dream about my mum and my dad, and you know, if I'm feeling a bit, you know, and in my dream, well, they've come to reassure me I'm okay, I'm fine.
That feeling of them being near you
Yeah.
and the fairies seems a very, very rich sort of existence.
Yes, it's very, very comforting to me, and that's where I get my comfort from. Is that, and especially because you're living out here without your family around you, you know, they're all grown up, they've got families of their own, and they lead their life. But there's times you can just feel, you know, and you might feel.
Are your grandchildren here? Or
No, they're all
so
in
they're
Ireland.
all in Ireland.
Oh, they're all in Ireland. Yeah, and you do miss them. You know, FaceTime is great, but that virtual, that hug is
Contact.
physical contact is what I miss. And you know, you might dream that night and might see mum, might see dad, something, and you kind of go, "Yeah, I'm fine, I'm okay. I've gotten
Hello.
over it.
How are ya?
Yeah.
Hello, how are you, mum? How are you doing? or if I'm feeling down, or if I'm not well, I'd often get that lavender smell. So I equate, well, look, it's my mum, it's my dad, it's my grandparents. There's somebody is soothing me.
So would you say, if you don't mind me bringing this up, I can see that you have a hearing problem.
Yeah.
That your hearing, lack of hearing, or your, the way that you hear the world. Would you say that enhances how you see the world?
Yes. When you lose one of your senses, other things come in. I've always been a very sensitive person.
That's what I was
Always.
attaining to, yeah.
I've always been very sensitive, and I can walk into a room and I can pick out somebody who's not having a good day. I can just pick them out. I don't know what it is. I can, because my mother was the 7th daughter. I have a 7th daughter. Oh. So there's, obviously something
I just
there.
had a feeling from you.
Empathy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I pick up vibes from their sadness. I just seem to do that. So yeah, like when we had the earthquake here last January.
Yeah.
I was sitting at a table with 2 other people. I had no shoes on. I'm sitting there and I go, "Can you feel that? Can you?" And no, I got up because I didn't feel right. I knew something was wrong. I couldn't figure this out, and I opened the window and I'm going, "Something's not right, girls. Can none of you feel? Can you not hear this? Can you?" No. And when Chaz went home, she lives up in not Capleisha, what's the next? The Capaz. She phoned me and she says, "Oh my God, you're so sensitive. There was an earthquake." I don't call it a disability.
I wouldn't say it was, no.
You
have
other
an ability.
Other senses.
You have an
kick in-
ability,
they kick
to be
into place.
stronger
Yes.
in other ways.
Yes, other things kick into place, but always been a very, very sensitive person. And I've just always had that, and if something is not right, I pick it up.
Well, if you can tell by us, that's why I asked that question, because I can feel that, like, I've only just met, really, and I feel as if I could just give you a big hug, and, I'm like that. I'm like, "Oh, it's lovely to see you," but without sounding silly.
Yes.
But that's a connection, and I think I would have presumed, maybe I should have come with another question. Do you have a lot of connections with people that you can't explain?
Yes, and a lot of people, quite a few people would say I'm very cold. I can't be in a big crowd, obviously, with my hearing, because I lose what's happening and the conversations. Because it's
or is it a low frequency or a high frequency hearing loss?
I'm not too sure. As I'm getting older, my hearing can't be repaired at all. So as I'm getting older, my hearing is decreasing and decreasing. And eventually I'll end up totally deaf. I don't like to be around loud noise. If I'm in a crowd, it's all totally muffled. Muffled. And I can't pick up the conversation. So I kind of have to stand back.
And that makes you look like you're a bit offish.
Yeah. So I read people's faces. I have to. That's my only way of doing it. If I was at home with all my own friends, they would bring forward and say, "Well, this is what's going on," or I might go, "I'll tell you in a few minutes what's going on." So people can think I'm cold or standoffish. I'm not. I have to stand back and pick up the vibe around the room and watch what's going on, because I can't participate.
Yeah, maybe it's going off the subject a bit, but in not this conversation, but with the fairies. But it's just that as well. I would believe that. Does this happen to you, where who's somebody who knows you and things that are going on around you go, "You didn't hear that, did you?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
You didn't get that. You didn't hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I would get and be go, "I'll tell you later." That's what my friends back home, because obviously they friends for donkey. And it's just that reassurance on the arm. I say, don't really worry.
And the
No,
look.
you didn't get
And
it.
the
And the
look.
look. Yeah. Because one of my friends is Scottish, so you can just imagine. And it'll be, "We'll tell you later." But I presume maybe all of this, my spiritual side, my faith, yeah, it's
more
It's all
open.
encompassed, isn't it?
yeah, I'm very open. I'm very opinionated too. I don't believe in this PC crap. I say what I say. And if I don't like it and I don't agree with you, that is my opinion. You can have yours. that's fine. We won't fall out over it. I'm empathetic, and if I feel that I'm going to hurt, I will stand back. So I think it's obviously my upbringing, but I feel I'm
That's
spiritual.
respect, isn't it?
And
Yeah.
it's respect, and I do believe in my fairies.
And you're
And
fairy
if you don't
orientated.
believe in it, that's up to you. If you think I'm crazy, off you go.
Just want to ask, does your name mean anything?
Margaret in English is Greek. It's Pearl.
Oh.
Yeah, and obviously the Irish side of it is Mairead.
Because like my friend is called Nula, and I've just found out the Nula was Queen of the Fairies.
Yeah.
And she didn't even know that because she's not like you.
She
wasn't
hasn't had
brought
that.
up like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
which is a
family
shame.
that- yeah,
you know,
maybe.
because if
Yes.
it's your folklore from your
Well, it depends
You know,
what.
where she came from.
It's not where she came from. We hand down our stories. Like I've been handed down my stories from my great-grandparents, my grandparents, to me, to mine, to the next generation down. That's just my family.
Yeah.
And that's how
That's
I've
how you
been
got
raised.
there.
Yes, I think, she wasn't that fortunate that she didn't get that.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm very, very fortunate to being able to listen to my grandparents and that I've had them in my life, because a lot of people don't have grandparents or great grandparents.
Well, when there's a time when you feel that you may not be able to communicate how you feel, right?
Yeah. Well, I've passed my stories on to my children, and they're now doing it to theirs. So it's the old tradition. It's
Word of
life.
mouth, but I do believe that we haven't sort of touched the surface on some things that you may know. And thank you so much
My
for
pleasure.
being with us today.
My pleasure. Absolutely, my pleasure.
I'm
yeah.
going to make myself a fairy door.
Yeah.
Well, if you have a look around here, there is actually a fairy door
I'm gonna
that
have a
Tina
look.
made for her grandchildren.
So thank you very much so much for
Stop.
being with us today. We'll see you next time on A Cosmic Conversation. So it's goodbye from Marie.
Goodbye from me.
Bye from Mairead.